Welcome to the Wave Strength. Innovative pension solutions for a secure retirement. Presented by Pacific Life.
Welcome to the Wave Strength webinar series. My name is Russ Proctor. I've been with Pacific Life for about 11 years now and about 35 years in the retirement industry. And with me today is Allie.
Hi, I'm Allie Smith. I've been with Pacific Life almost 8 years, most recently in the life insurance division and about in the institutional division for about 7 months.
In this episode of the Wave Strength, we are talking about financial security and in particular planning for the unknown. And a lot of times when you're planning for the unknown, it can get overwhelming because there are so many details, so many different unknowns that are out there. It can be overwhelming to decide, well, how do you even start to plan for all these unknowns that are out there?
Definitely. And I would say we hear about planning for risk, and not everything is risky. It may be good life events. What if you have a child? What if you get married? It's not all just, well, what if something happens to me medically? Exactly,
yeah. And I think in a recent Wave Strength video as well with Michelle Curran, she had an interesting take on this as well.
Yeah, especially as being a former U.S. Air Force fighter pilot, she had a wonderful metaphor of, tackling the closest alligator to the boat. So basically, I don't necessarily need to figure everything out today. Let me worry about what's closest and affecting me the most at this current moment in time. So for example, maybe someone in my age group or potentially older could be worried about paying off student loans and knowing how much, that takes up from your income and, slowly kind of picking away at that, balance.
Yeah, I think that's important as you're thinking about one of the things, the unknowns is, are you saving enough for retirement? Because nobody knows exactly how much to save. So that's a challenge and it's overwhelming when you think about all the things that go into that. But as you mentioned, we'll start with what's closest to the boat. If you've got a big credit card debt or student loans, there's something, focus on those things. You may also think about, well, where is the best thing to pay off? Like with credit cards, the highest interest rate maybe. You might also think about with the 401k plan, that if you've got an employer match, maybe that's the best place for the money is to put it in the 401k plan, at least to get that match, because that's sort of like free money from the employer. You don't want to pass that up.
No, definitely not. And, I think it's one of those things where we don't know what's going to happen. And so, if you get too far along the path, which, we talked about previously, you don't want to wait too long because then all of those things seem to be overwhelming, which goes back to being the closest alligator to the boat, where I can start making little changes and I can, start tackling my balance and not have to worry about it all at one time, so then when I get to that end path, it's a little bit more clear and I've looked at all of my tools and made sure that I'm contributing, where I can. And like you said, getting the company match or, doing the annual contribution increase, or if you have a bonus, maybe putting a little chunk of that away, which, may not be ideal in the moment if you have something that you want to buy, but, all really important pieces that you touched on.
Right. Yeah. And I think we've heard a lot of people are in these high deductible medical plans now, and utilizing that HSA for not only medical expenses, but a great tool for retirement as well, where it's tax-free going in, tax-free accumulation, and tax-free used in retirement as long as it's for medical expenses that you incurred sometime before that. So another great tool to think about, hey, maybe that's a good place to put some money as well. One thing as well I think about when you are planning these things out and you think, okay, I'm putting my money in, I've paid off my credit card debts, everything's set, I'm going to be putting in 10% into my 401k plan for the next 30 years and I'll be fine at retirement. But there's unknowns that happen throughout life as well that you have to be prepared for.
I couldn't agree more. And as a woman, we see, more instances of women being pulled away for taking care of a family or taking care of a spouse or, a parent. So, that can greatly affect what that picture looks like, because if you are then in a place where you can't contribute or you're having to be, put on pause, that end result may look different, or you may not have even thought that. I mean, for example, twins run in my family. So if I decide to have a children, all of a sudden now there's two. I don't know if I'd be prepared for that. And that's a very scary thought.
Yeah, that can be challenging.
So what do you think about when, let's say someone gets to the end and they look at what they have, and how do they know that is still enough? I mean, what if you get to 60 or 65 or, a certain age? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, I like to think of retirement as the beginning and not the end, since I'm getting closer to that. That sounds a little morbid. So, but yeah, I think it is hard to know that if you have enough at retirement, and in particular, none of us really know how long we're going to live. And I think that's another challenge that women face as well. You mentioned the challenge that they have in terms of saving for retirement and the unknowns that can happen there, but also the unknowns in retirement of how long they're going to live. And the statistics show that women typically live longer than men. So you may have more challenges getting up to the retirement age, and then also more challenges in retirement of living longer.
Definitely. Have you seen any, examples of this? I mean, I know you've been in the industry quite a while, particularly, in the pension solution space.
Yeah, the thing that I think about as I'm talking with people and participants and plan sponsors is that people really don't realize how long that they're probably going to live. Like they may think, oh, I'm going to live till 76 or 80 and I've got enough to make it there. But when you really look at the facts and the statistics and thinking not only of yourself, but if you're going to expect that you'll be married in retirement, it's really you and your spouse of how long is the last one of you going to live. And when you think about that, you've got about a 50% chance that at least one of you will live beyond age 92, and actually a 10% chance that one of you will live to age 100. So that's a 1 in 10 chance that you're going to be out of money and you're going to be 100 years old. And the question is, do you want to go back to work part-time at age 100, or would you have rather worked a little more upfront or plan some type of guaranteed income that you know is going to last as long as you live?
I definitely don't want to go back to work at age 100. I certainly want to be able to take advantage of, the tools that we have. And, I personally like to consider myself my own financial advocate in, taking advantage of the tools, that we've discussed previously and, making sure that we are planning for the unknown and whether or not you think something may or may not happen. I've had to really come to the belief that I'm going to live a lot longer than I thought originally, which, as much as that's exciting, that's also scary. But again, it's a bit a different framework of it not being something that planning for risk. It's just more about planning for the unknown, because those are all great events that may happen, but whether they're good or bad, we still want to be prepared for them.
Yeah, it kind of just reminds me of a story of a relative that I had of several years ago that came to me, and she was a cousin that I had known kind of what I was doing in retirement, and a single mother, and had kind of worked hard throughout her life to watch her money and pay things off. And she was about 50 or so at the time, and we were actually at a football game and talking about, hey, I think I may be retiring in a few years. I think I've done a great job through my life, and I'm asking her the questions about, well, what have you done and things like that. And she said, well, I've paid off my house already, which, hey, that's great. You're 50 and your house is paid for. That's fantastic. And then how about what other savings do you have? And she's, she of course had Social Security. She had a little bit of a pension as well, and then asked for other income. She's in the 401k. I've saved up $40,000. So, I think that'll last me in retirement. And so I kind of had to, bite my tongue a little bit, but to still kind of try to help and say, well, how long do you think you're going to live? And she's like, oh, I don't think that long, in 70s or something. I'm like, well, we have the same grandmother. She lived well into her 90s. So you've got a good chance that you're going to have to, if you retire at, 50 or 55, you might have 40 years to be in retirement. And so your nest egg of 40,000 is $1,000 a year for the next 40 years that you have to make that last. And so I think it was a wake-up call a little bit to think about, okay, she's done a lot of great things that other people haven't done in life, but there's still maybe to reconsider at least, is that enough for her? And everyone's got a different number of what's right for them, what lifestyle that they want. But it did make her reconsider that, okay, I'd rather work a few more years now than try to work a few more years when I'm 80 or 85 and be a greeter at some store or something to try to make a few extra bucks. So she's still working now. So doing great in terms of her retirement planning and retirement savings.
Yeah, well, thankfully she had you to ask. Mm-hmm. I mean, which we have talked about, with employee interviews, we see this theme of people not doing either. They're not spending, they're not saving. They don't really know which direction to go. So
yeah, I think about in retirement, the fact that you don't know how long you're going to live, that we are seeing some people that they may have actually saved enough, if you analyze it all, you think, okay, based on how long they're expected to live, they've got plenty of money, but they're not really sure. And so we see that they end up not spending it at all. They live on Social Security, living a much lower lifestyle than they could, just because they're so afraid of running out of money. And that's really where you want to look at all the different tools that are out there. And there are tools that can help manage that risk. And so if you have a certain level of income that you need to live on, being able to convert some of your lump sum of your 401k into some guaranteed lifetime income can be very helpful for that person. So instead of living on just Social Security, if they knew they could get an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month for life, knowing that it would last, then they could spend that extra $2,000 every month and know it's coming the next month, and really upgrade their standard of living in retirement. And just enjoy. They've worked hard for that money for 40 years.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of The Wave Strength. We hope to see you again soon. In the meantime, please go to our YouTube and Spotify to check out some other content. Thanks so much and have a great day.
This has been another episode of The Wave Strength, presented by Pacific Life. Don't forget to catch us on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Although this is presented by Pacific Life, the opinions and views expressed are those of the hosts and participants and do not necessarily reflect Pacific Life's views on any of the topics discussed. Pacific Life is a product provider. It is not a fiduciary and therefore does not give advice or make recommendations regarding insurance or investment products. Pacific Life, its affiliates, its distributors, and respective representatives do not provide any employer-sponsored qualified plan administrative services or impartial advice about investments, and do not act in a fiduciary capacity for any plan. Pacific Life refers to Pacific Life Insurance Company, Newport Beach, California, and its affiliates, including Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Insurance products are issued by Pacific Life Insurance Company in all states except New York, and in all states by Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Product availability and features may vary by state. Each insurance company is solely responsible for the financial obligations accruing under the products it issues. This was recorded on April 7th, 2022.